Fear is irrational. Fear can only exist if you doubt yourself. But I will admit I had once feared that fate itself had a dark plan where I would forever walk a path alone. Life as I knew it was ripped from my hands as a child, leaving me to wander until I found my true self, my purpose in the jungles untouched by man. Fitting that I lost the creature comforts of society only to find comfort claiming creatures in the wild. But these beasts were too simple and began to bore me. That is when fate spoke up, presenting its champion, a challenge unlike any being I had bested before. He proved worthy, for a short while, but I quickly grew beyond him and left him behind in the dirt. I had hoped fate would present me some reward, but life remained empty. This is when the fear sunk in. I sought out opponents, but none provided me with the challenge I craved. Before me was a desolate road leading to nothing. However, it seems that fate was biding its time. It had presented a new wilderness and a choice. Do I go quietly into the night, an old man reminiscing on his lost glory? Or do I chase the meaning I desire? I no longer fear fate. How can I fear a force that has left a trail to something so glorious? How can I fear something that presents what I want most? So I approach without fear, instead with boundless excitement for this one final hunt.
Welcome back to another Champion Deep Dive, and today we're talking about Kraven. He's got Disorient, Bleed, Critical Bleeds, True Accuracy, Unstoppable, and Unblockable Attacks, and a new way to play with setting traps that'll leave you rooting for your favorite hunter. Let's get into it. Kraven enters the contest as a jungle fighter. With this ability, the first hit of his heavy attack inflicts a non-stacking Disorient debuff, decreasing block proficiency and defensive ability accuracy by 40% for 16 seconds. Also, critical hits inflict a bleed debuff lasting 8 seconds. Now, whenever Kraven is inflicted by a non-damaging debuff, he gains an endurance passive, reducing the duration of future non-damaging debuffs by 10% for the rest of the fight. This maxes out at 8 stacks. Next up, we've got traps. But in order to get more into that, we've got to check out his special attacks. The Special One. When launching the attack, all bleed effects on the opponent are paused. At the end of the attack, Kraven places a trap at the opponent's location. This works even if the opponent is blocking. The trap arms after 5 seconds and lasts until triggered. Now, if the opponent moves into or is pushed into a trap, it springs and deals a burst of direct damage, scaling with base attack only, and roots the opponent in place for 5 seconds. However, if the opponent moves into the trap during a special attack, the trap is removed. Now, if the opponent is pushed into the trap by a heavy attack, Kraven has a 100% chance to place a new trap when the root debuff expires. This also works with the special too, but more on that later. Now, when rooted, champions cannot move, but they can still attack, block, and dodge. Activating a special attack removes root and prevents it from applying. Also, while the opponent is rooted, Kraven's dash attacks become unstoppable. His damage over time debuffs are paused, and he gains an increase to critical rating, increasing the chances of gaining those extra bleeds. Not only that, while rooted, the opponent's combat power rate is reduced by 37.5%. Now, you'll notice that once the opponent is rooted, they'll try to break out of the trap with heavy attacks, or they'll try to block. Either way, this gives Kraven very easy openings, especially with his unstoppable ability. Now, on activation, Kraven gains a non-stacking true accuracy buff, ignoring all evade and auto-block effects for 20 seconds. If a trap has been triggered, it refreshes this effect. Now, circling back to the traps. New traps replace existing ones, if it hasn't already been triggered. However, if the trap has been triggered, Kraven cannot initiate another trap until the opponent's root debuff has expired. Instead, the special one gains increased critical rating for the duration of the attack. And, as a defender, traps are placed at Kraven's location, and they arm immediately. Now, when a trap is triggered on the opponent, it also inflicts a cross-fight suppression passive, reducing combat power rate by 6.25% for this and the next 5 fights. This maxes out at 2 stacks. Now, in the following fights, suppression potency is increased by 100%, so that 6.25% becomes 12.5%, with a total potency of 25% with max stacks. Lastly, traps cannot suppress opponents with natural class advantage. And traps are unaffected by ability accuracy reduction. With the Special 2, on activation, Kraven gains a precision buff, increasing critical rating for 20 seconds. Triggering a trap refreshes this effect and maxes out at 5 stacks. The first hit is unblockable and inflicts a poison debuff, reducing health recovery by 30% and dealing direct damage over 3 seconds. If the opponent is rooted, all bleed effects are refreshed. One thing to keep note of is that during all special attacks, all root and precision buffs are paused. This gives you more chances to stack on those big yellow numbers and bleeds during your special attacks. The Special 3. Kraven gains a cruelty buff, increasing critical damage rating. This is an indefinite buff. However, if Kraven is knocked down, it'll be removed. Now, if the opponent is rooted, they'll gain no power during this attack. And the potency of the cruelty buff is increased by 100%. But if the opponent is not rooted, but a trap is placed, even if not armed, the trap springs regardless of the opponent's position, giving you an easy opening right out of the gate from that Special 3 attack. Now, let's check out the signature ability. When awakened, Kraven gains entrapment. This is a passive ability, where while the opponent is rooted, a trample passive is granted while Kraven is performing a dash attack, making the attack unblockable. This, however, can be bypassed by a well-timed block. Also, while the opponent is rooted, all bleeds are critical bleeds, multiplying their potency by up to 200% of Kraven's critical damage. Now, let's take him out for a spin in the champion rotation. Traps give Kraven a unique advantage over his opponents. The key is getting those traps to re-trigger as often as you can and take advantage of that bonus damage. So, on shorter fights, build up to just under a Special 2 attack. When ready, launch the Special 1 to set a trap at the opponent's location. From here, keep the opponent engaged but away from the trap and build up to your Special 2. For best results, bait out the opponent's special attacks before pushing them into the trap. Then, get the opponent close to the trap, launch the Special 2, pushing them into the trap and triggering it instantly. This damages the opponent and roots them in place. Now, attack the opponent with that increased critical rating and stack on those critical bleeds. When the root debuff expires, the trap will be reapplied. From here, back away, build back up to your special 2, and do it all again. For longer fights, start with a special 1 to set a trap. From there, work to your special 3, keeping them away from the trap until you lock in your 3rd power bar, or very close to it. Push the opponent into the trap to activate it, and root them in place with a heavy attack. Now, launch the special 3 to gain the cruelty buff and cruelty bonus. This will increase the damage your critical bleeds inflict while the opponent is rooted. From here, build up to your special 2, keeping in mind that the trap will re-trigger from pushing the opponent into it with the heavy attack you launched before the special 3. When ready, launch the special 2 and push the opponent into the trap. From here, rinse and repeat, pushing the opponent back into the trap with special 2s to stack on multiple precision buffs, and continually take advantage of the cruelty buff you built with the special 3. As long as you aren't knocked down, of course. Now, let's check out some best uses. Due to Kraven's access to higher critical rating, Crit Me with your best shot allows him to not only damage your opponent, but also keep the pressure on with his suppression passive. Access to true accuracy lets you take on auto block, evade champions, and nodes like Mixmaster, for example. Taking on a champion like Thing, with the amount of bleeds Kraven can output, will keep those rock stacks in check. Similarly, Kraven will do just fine on Do You Bleed. If you're looking to maximize Kraven's effectiveness, the Deep Wounds Mastery will increase the durations of his bleeds, as well as give you some bonus damage each time you inflict them. Now, these aren't the only uses for Kraven out there. Are you already theory crafting? Let us know your thoughts in the comments and let's discuss. Now, let's check out some notable synergies. Sinister 6. With Dr. Octopus, Electro, Green Goblin, Rhino, and Vulture on the team, Synergy champions, when fighting heroes, will see their combat power rate increased by 25%. Fun adventures. With Squirrel Girl on the team, when Kraven faces a bleed immune champion, his bleed debuffs inflict poison instead, reducing health recovery by 30% and dealing 17% of attack and direct damage over 10 seconds. And yes, this also pauses just like the bleeds do. With Squirrel Girl, when the opponent is afflicted by an injury debuff, Squirrel Girl gains a 50% chance to gain a precision buff, increasing critical rating by 1710. And 50% chance to gain a cruelty buff, increasing critical damage rating by 798. Both effects last for 10 seconds. Keep in mind, these are 2 separate chances happening at the same time, so there's a chance for both buffs to trigger at the same time. Big game. With Sasquatch, Beast, or Dragon Man on the team, Synergy champions, when stunning a stun immune champion, will instead inflict a non-stacking concussion debuff, reducing ability accuracy by 60% for 5 seconds. Misunderstanding. With Venompool and Agent Venom on the team, Kraven's true accuracy also ignores the effects of miss. With Venompool, when fighting bleed immune champions, when inflicting bleeds, inflict a matching degeneration instead. With Agent Venom, on critical hits, or when the opponent fails to evade, he inflicts a bleed debuff, dealing 50% of attack and direct damage over 4 seconds. Pressure points. With Tigra on the team, Kraven, when landing a critical hit, he inflicts a fragility debuff for 5 seconds. Now, when attacking a fragile opponent, Kraven increases critical damage rating by 230. And decreases their block proficiency by 15%. With Tigra, while the opponent is neutralized, she gains 1710 critical rating, giving you more chances for big yellow numbers, especially on those unblockable special attacks. And finally, Obsession. With Spider-Man Symbiote, or Spider-Man Classic on the team, Kraven, once per fight, when receiving damage that would result in a knockout, he instead gains an immortality buff, preventing death for 8 seconds. With both Spider-Man Symbiote and Classic, armor break debuffs are paused during special attacks, and their duration is increased by 7 seconds. Now, did you see a synergy that was a cut above the rest? Kraven access to a new synergy team? Let us know your thoughts in the comments and let's discuss. Thank you for watching this champion deep dive for Kraven. Are you ready? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And if you like the video and want to see more, click subscribe, like, comment, and share. And remember, we'll see you in the battle round.